Hey, hey, welcome to another episode. I am Dagny.
And I'm Damali.
And in this episode, we want to share and discuss with you the concept of identity and home. What does this mean for us? How does this develop? Is this something you're just born with by default, or is it something that you create for yourself voluntarily or indirectly? Now, the reason why we want to talk about this is first, well, there's two reasons actually. One of them, it is a personal experience of ours that we thought would be interesting to share and discuss because we know there must be other people who also have had a similar experience. And secondly, it also is part of another interview that we watched between Lupita, Nyong'o, and Trevor Noah, speaking about identity and accents and home and moving around, which kind of sparked some inspiration for us of like, oh, we actually have more to even add to that conversation. So that's what we're going to get into in this episode. So to start, should we first start with the interview that we watched first?
Sure.
To lay the groundwork of why we're asking certain
where it's
questions.
coming from.
Yeah? Okay, so go ahead, Damali, you can start.
Yeah. I had seen this. I don't know if you guys know, Trevor Noah has a podcast, has a video portion called What Now? I think it's called What Now, yeah. And he brings on guests, of course, to discuss things and things like that. And one of his guests were Lupita Nyong'o. I'm sure many people know Lupita Nyong'o. She was in Black Panther. She was in 12 Years a Slave. She was in the Quiet. I think it's A Quiet Place. I think like the third one. So she's. I think many people know of as actress, and they were discussing the concept of identity, which was a big thing because in the room, like Trevor's from South Africa, Lupita's from Kenya, and then the other podcaster is I think London. I think by way of Nigeria, I believe. And so they all kind of discuss this identity and what it means to them, especially since they're not from America but living in America. And so I just thought it was really interesting because even though obviously like I was born in America, whereas Lupita was not. Lupita and Trevor and all of them were not. But some of the stuff that she talked about, I could relate to some of it. And I found it really and also and learning more about her story was interesting as well. And I just thought it would be cool to talk about like what does identity mean to us? What does it mean? Especially since I think everyone can agree America has like a kind of unique way of discussing identity and like giving a definition of identity, right? I think everyone's heard like the I don't know if it really is now, but how people call America like this melting pot, which in some ways it is, sometimes no, but a melting pot of all these different cultures in one place, which is not the same for other parts of the world. So in this video, I just liked how I like how she laid it down and the kind of example she gave and how how she was kind of balancing her like because it's I think for her it's like Kenya, Mexico, and America are like the main countries that really shaped her like identity. And even though she goes through it differently than us, of course, I just thought it was kind of eye-opening to see that and be like, oh, some of it I can't relate to, but other stuff I'm like, that sounds interesting. And that kind of sounds like how, because the way we grew up also was kind of, I guess, different than some of our, I guess, peers who were growing up around. And that kind of made me think of that. So I guess that's what to lay that out of what the podcast. Everyone I think should go see it because I thought it was really interesting. And it was called like, what is an accent? And for example, like Lupita talks about like losing her accent and having to change her accent and how acting drama school obviously affected her accent and how it was like being in America and then going back home and then going back to America and like how that affected her. And then also Trevor Noah tends to give like good little like, insights and advice and things like that, and he also kind of added his own like information to it as well. So I found it a really interesting interview, and I really liked it. And I think everyone should go and see it if they have a chance. But I think that's how we can start. Anything else, Dagny, you'd like to add about the video?
Yes. I wanted to share. Now, I listen to it audio as a podcast. So you have both options. You can do the video or the audio. And for me, a few of the things I wanted to share that are highlights that I think will connect to in the continuation of this episode conversation. One, there's like there's three parts that I wanted to highlight for it to start. One, she mentioned that changing her accent changing kind of illustrated her story or her life story, as well as reflected that like all of Earth or all of the planet is hers to claim kind of thing. And how initially her accent seemed to be it's something that is part of her identity. So once it was changing, or almost she felt like she had lost it, like she couldn't speak the way she used to. She felt that meant that also meant her identity is now lost because now she's sounding like somebody who's not where she grew up kind of thing, which I thought was a good thing to highlight or question about whether accent really is something to measure, is a good metric to measure or qualify identity at all. Especially if for some people your accent does change over time, not because you're pretending, but just because you're either moving in different places or you're picking up different languages and things like that. Or just finding your voice. Because I do feel when like we're kids, we possibly play around with different accents that we're hearing around us, which we're kind of just mirroring or reflecting what is in our environment as opposed to that being our voice. So that's one. And then a second thing I liked that she mentioned, the point she made, was when she was trying to learn about racism, when she had moved to America and started to work there. And I like the point she made, noting that she learned racism intellectually, as if you're reading it from a textbook, as if you're learning dates, instead of formatively for people who actually were brought up in America or actually like have experienced it in their formative years, which is when they're younger. And I thought that was a good point to make when it comes to somewhat of the debate that happens when either Americans are trying to explain why American racism is so important or like everybody else in the world should know about it or should understand it, when actually there is a difference in experiencing it and learning about it. So when people have experienced it formatively, when they explain it, there's so much like emotion or trauma that comes with it that unfortunately sometimes doesn't translate to people who have not experienced that. So that ends up sometimes masking or possibly causing a disconnect in the point they're trying to make as to understanding why this is important and why we should not repeat this in other places, or why we should be careful to not allow these sorts of things to get exported in other parts of the world or industries. So that was my first time hearing it being described like that, where actually there's a difference if you are learning about something intellectually or formatively, which then segues into the last thing that I thought was very nice that she said, where she noted when she was going for auditions in America and everybody else was very nervous or anxious or like, oh my goodness, I don't know if they're going to pick me. And she was very calm, like, I've come too far for me to doubt myself, because she came all the way from Kenya to come to these auditions and she's on like a visa. So basically, if this doesn't, it has to work because she's already done so much to get to this point. And I think that kind of reflects the previous point I made in terms of the fact that self-doubt or racism or automatically feeling you're being rejected before you entered is not something she carried at all, because she did not formatively experience that in America. So even putting on identity when it comes to Black entertainers in America who are not American, I think that also causes then that debate or illusion of tension where Black American actors or people in that industry feel like, well, because they claim their scars are heavier than others, so they should be given a certain value compared to Black actors or in the industry that are not American. So I thought that was a good way to illustrate that type of conversation, which can be a weighted dynamic depending on who you're speaking to, but it's something that we can't ignore. I feel like there's a lot of room that we can make more of a connection with that instead of creating more barriers or disparities between these groups. Because on the outside looking in, everybody's Black, but like that's not actually the same experience everybody is having, which then goes into this next part of our conversation, where even the idea of Blackness and what you should be experiencing or what you should be into or what you should be focused on. There are stereotypes that don't adhere to everybody, that we should make more room to like be more accepting of. So those were like the highlight things of their interview that stood out to me. That I was like, ooh, I resonate with that. And that's like other points of conversation that actually could be elaborate on even more.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that where and I think I mean it's also a similar thing which I think we discussed in the earlier podcast episode too of like how it is for if you're from Ghana, like people, Ghanaians and then the diasporans that come in and like whether the diasporans are from like America or London and in Ghana and how all of us kind of obviously act differently and like relate differently to each other and like we don't all see eye to eye, even though obviously our skin color, everyone's black, but we don't really have the same, even like London to American black is different, right?
Mhm.
Because like we all have a different experience and things like that. And same thing if you have like immigrants that come to America versus people that are born here, that there are some disconnects and which of course makes because of course our parents are immigrants and they're not American, they weren't born in America, and so obviously sometimes conversations about like race and blackness can be different, right? Because we all have grown, it's been a different kind of experience of like blackness identity, and then of course I think the video also kind of goes into this extra layer of identity, which I think, and there's one quote that Trevor had said. I still think you should, even though we're giving little spoilers here, but I still think you should watch the video because it's very interesting.
Definitely.
But I think Trevor had said, America tells us to drop our identity at the door, but also adopt an identity. And I thought that was very
Mhm.
interesting because it's true. I think America, we're very much like it's either you're American or you're whatever you are. Like like being American is different from other things, and I've had like other people I know say that too, where it's like I'm American. That's it. It's very different from like Mexican American, or African American, or he said like oh you were Irish before, but you can't do that Irish stuff. Now we're American. It's different, and we're always kind of and it's like oh it's like so what identity we're dropping something, but we also have to pick up something. But American identity, it's hard to just be American, right? Because America is not like it's not one thing. So how what does it really mean to be American if like there's so many different types of people and different religions and different all mixed up in one like pot? So then how can what is like the right way to be American? Which now we're getting all psychological and deep and everything, and then it's like I don't know, right? Because I mean, and some of the things that we bring up, like I remember to bring in some other example. I think I saw it was a meme or something from the actor. What's his name? I think Tom Holland. I think he's British, but he plays Spider-Man, the most recent Spider-Man. And he was saying something where they were saying, oh, like he said something how he didn't like American food or something like that. And then like the guy would say, okay, well, what do you think about like potato chips or something? And he's like, okay, but where do potato chips come from? And like, well, they're American. Like, no, actually, potato chips are from like Ireland or England or something, or like fish and chips or like pizza, but it's from Italy. Like it's like you say it's like American, but then it's from somewhere else, but America does it in a different way, kind of thing. So which I think is, I mean, that's an extra layer there as well. Um, and then to add to that, well, this is towards the end, but and Lupita had said that like one thing America is very good at is making narratives about itself.
Mm.
And and you either have to fit the narrative, do you fit the narrative or do you not? Regardless of if the narrative is like the only answer or whether the narrative is narrow or wide, or it's like you just have to fit this. And I think that also I guess adds to why there are certain I mean I guess it makes America really unique, but also makes it kind of hard to kind of fit. And if you already like it's already hard to fit in America, I think, because of coming from all these different places. But then there's like another layer if you don't like you're like American, like for us, like we're American, but of course we have a Ghanaian family, right? Relatives and everything, and so you're like Ghana. There's like Ghana there, and there's like America there, but yet we're interested in other stuff. And then where we lived, we were mostly around Hispanics, and we're close to like so it's like yeah, and we've kind of I guess a little bit like Lupita, where we kind of moved around, where like
Mm.
depending on where we were like at school or working in our life so far, we've either been we've been around like Hispanics for a long time, and then we're around Black people for a long, and then around white people, and like we've lived in like different kind of where you have different types of people around you, and it's always like okay, so where do we fit? Who am I? Who are, the kind of thing. Um, and that is what that's what I related to with. But I liked like Lupita kind of made it seem as if like it's whatever you want kind of thing. Like your identity is whatever you want to. The world is yours, and I think she had said that the borders we make like are human made borders that we're making, and your identity is what you don't have to you don't have to do one or the other. We don't have to like divide it. I think it happens a lot as well. Like I remember with I think Lupita was saying she's from Kenya. There's never been a question that she's from Kenya, even though people are like, oh, Kenya or Mexico? Kenya or Mexico? Which one? You have to pick one, kind of thing. And I think she also brought up her dad. Like I think she was thinking of getting I think American citizenship, and she asked her dad, "Oh, is it okay?" and everything. He's like, "It's up to you. Like you can claim all of those identities. You can claim, right?" Um, and so I thought that was kind of interesting because and also there's like the added. Well, I'll let you respond to that if you have anything to say to that, and then I'll add my other point.
Sure, yeah. I think the American identity experience is unique. Not to claim it's better than anybody else, not to claim it's lesser than anybody else.
Just different.
It is different, it is unique. And I feel like, as we're speaking from experience, the American identity is interesting because there is that facade or packaging of being a melting pot where you can pick from different cultures as if it's a buffet. Yes. Kind of vibe. So you get this like intense exposure to variety and diversity, which I'm not sure if I've seen that yet in other parts of the world. I feel like you get like, okay, you can go to this corner of this city and, oh, hey, look, there's a different characters or different language and the little pockets here and there. But I have yet to see it as extreme as what we have in the US, which I don't know if that's why the types of experiences we can have like seem to be just so intense, whether it's good or bad, whether it's violence or innovation. It just seems like there's such an extreme to it, but maybe because there's so much differences in everybody who's trying to fit into the American checkbox, that is kind of a packaging because it is made up. That was the reason how America was made up of like, let's just throw everyone in here and use all of them. We don't need to go too deep in that history, but it's still a lot of packaging, or like she noted, very much narrative based, as opposed to we really are one big happy family all the time. And so when it comes to then people who are possibly first or second generation Americans or third culture kid, I think is another way to put it, where your parents immigrated to somewhere else and then you were brought up somewhere else. And so you're picking up the cultures of where you're brought up or born, which are actually foreign to your blood family. But these now become part of you, kind of thing. And so then it causes, maybe that's why even the conversation or the topic point of how much energy do you put into even thinking what your identity is, where I don't know if this is only an American thing, or is this only for people who have moved, like the family did move around, and then you as a kid are just picking up from all the different places you moved around, even though it's foreign to your family. While possibly, if you look at the generations who didn't have to move and they were born and raised in where they were at, was that even a conversation point at all? Or something that's kind of just taken as is, like how you put on your shoes. So there's no reason to talk about it because it's already there, kind of thing. So I think that's where the packaging comes in, which may be why it makes sense for, at least in their conversation, about what a different experience the American identity packaging puts into that. Because it makes it this topic that everybody needs to like write a dissertation paper on, because the basis of it is packaging, where the American identity is like something that was created to fit the storyline that they wanted the American narrative to have, which kind of glitches with the people on the ground or people who have to move around with that, because you can pick up so many different things with that extreme diversity may not blend as well in all environments.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, with how like and especially with the when you kind of have to kind of create your own identity basically and find your own people because throughout like, I'll also add how sometimes it for others that like I guess didn't have immigrant parents or their whole family has lived here or they don't or they're not in a mixed family or things like that. I feel like these kind of conversations may not be ones they really have to have, or I know that I have like peers or friends that like if I explained this to them, I don't know if they would fully understand where I'm coming from because they have such a different experience than I do. And some of the things that happen where I would bring up even as being black in America, like because of how we've moved around where we've lived, I don't only have like I have friends from different type I have Spanish friends, white friends, but like different types of friends. So I'm not always just speaking to, my own people. I guess I could say my own people, I guess I could say, but what does that even mean? Because our identities are so all over the place. And I'll bring up things to, let's say, like, friends of different ethnicities, and I bring up issues that we're having, and it goes right over their heads. Like they don't really get and they think they get, but not really. I've had some friends also who have kind of tried to discuss it and things like that, whether it be like I don't know, friends from Mexico or from China or whatever. But it's hard to understand. I think for some people that are not going through it, and that also adds to that feeling of not you don't really feel like you belong then because if you can't really discuss it with other peers and things and it's like okay then it's just us by ourselves going through this with our family and like everyone else around us is not like for us personally we growing up we lived around mostly like Hispanic students. I was mostly like so it was like the only black person in a school of a bunch of Hispanics, kind of thing. So obviously our identities would be kind of weird because like who the heck my friends are all doing this one thing but like we can't fully understand each other and sometimes things are odd or they'll bring up things ignorant questions they don't really get it because how would their whole family's from Mexico and they're all here like kind of thing. um and so it kind of it sometimes and or having like ignorant things said where and you don't know if kids are really being rude or not, but I've had issues with like people that are that will say things like oh like you sound weird like the way I talk like oh you don't sound like you don't sound like black enough or you don't sound black, why do you talk like that, things like that, or like why do you sound weird, or like or I had one person say that I'm like an Oreo or something, which I'm like that's actually that's kind of rude, but I'm like, but at the time I'm like okay, and like I had one person that was or like I'm black on the outside but like white, but I act white on the inside or whatever, and I'm just kind of like what does that even mean, or even other black people being like oh you speak kind of different, like why don't you speak like the rest of us, like things like that. And so you're kind of like or people saying oh you act kind of awkward or you're kind of weird, or like there's always that kind of layer of like who are you? What are kind of thing. And even though we're all in America, and I thought America was a melting pot, I thought we're all supposed to be different, but you can only be a certain level of different, and then the rest is supposed to be, or I've had friends of different where I speak about why, the relationship between like the black people and police. And like, I had a friend one time who was like, oh no, but police are just doing. I don't think that's like that for everybody. I think the police are just doing what they're doing. Like she completely didn't understand what I was talking about. And so I'm like, okay, well, I can't speak about black people and police now because you won't get it because it's not your experience and you're not it's not part of your identity. So as I've gotten older, I've just learned to know when to speak about certain topics about identity and when not to, because some people just don't, and it's not their fault. They're just not, they just, and they're, and it's kind of like you can be friends with people and they're fine with you, but they don't fully understand you, right? I mean, they care about you, they're awesome, you're close and everything, but there's like a part of you that they will never fully get because they don't have that similar experience. And so it seems so outside of their like their because it's not a part of their lives, right? And so kind of, and think as we get older, I mean, it's harder because you get it more, but it's easier because now you're older and you can kind of you can make your own bonds, your own friendships, you can make your own spaces, and it doesn't matter if it looks different from other people's. But when you're growing up as a child, it's hard because you're kind of like, who am I supposed to be? And then also, aside from like, you're not Hispanic. Like, what are you doing here? There's also, you're not like African enough, right? Because we're not. I mean, our parents are from Africa, but like we're not. So even if we go there and we visit, we're still not really. It's obvious you're not from here, kind of thing. And then or certain things, or like our parents can discuss things about Africa in certain ways, or particularly Ghana, and sometimes we don't always share the same thoughts about it, or or if our parents, like, because we all know, not everyone, but we know, like, like African Americans, some have a certain idea about Africa, and then Africans have a certain idea about Americans. So sometimes, like our parents are discussing things about Black Americans, let's say, and they'll be saying certain things. Sometimes okay, sometimes I'm like, but your kids are Black. It's like, we're African American, like we're Black American, and our experience is a little bit different, And so it's interesting to have discussions like that, or to see how, like, we're all kind of there's no one, like if you ask me, oh, which identity do you choose? I don't know how do you choose one, and like, why do I have to? Like, why can't I just be as I am, and just and then on the flip side, it does make, I mean, I'll speak me personally, it makes me very open-minded, like, because I'm so kind of able to, I've been I've had to live in other places, and I've been around people that have the same skin color or don't. It's made me, I'm very open. I have very, like, I have different friends from all over the world, and different and all types of different people, and I'm able to, like, relate in different way, even though it's not my culture, but I can still relate to it. Like even though I speak about, like, China, where, like, even though I'm not Chinese, but I know a lot about, like, the culture and language and all that stuff because I studied it, I'm interested in it, and like, and so if a Chinese person is, like, discussing some stuff they're going through, or I can kind of be like, oh, okay, I won't be like, oh, I don't know, that's not my experience, so I don't care. No, I'm like, oh no, I want to know more, I'm open to it. And even if it's not my experience, but I can kind of relate, or I can kind of have some level of understanding that sometimes other people might not always have, like with me, kind of thing. um and it enables me to kind of, I'm I can go to I can travel to other places, or or be around different types of people, and I can find some kind of common ground in some way, because there's so many things that I've expressed, and I have so many different, like, interests, like, and I think Lupita brought this up too, where she was like, there was a time when she was into, like, Linkin Park, right? I don't know if everyone knows who Linkin Park is, but they're a white group, okay? Like, white as anything. And this is like Lupita, Black as anything in Kenya, and she's like so into, like, And then, oh, I know that I know Trevor was laughing that like that's like devil music or whatever, like, in their generation. But I relate to them. Like, yeah, I've been, as I'm Black, but like I've been into, like, I'm into, like, the Chinese culture. I'm learning, like, I'm Chinese. I like Japanese anime. I was also into Linkin Park, and I was when I was younger, I was a huge, like, heavy metal fan, kind of thing, like Linkin Park, My Chemical Romance, Evanescence, like all of those, like, and they're all white, by the way, and I was really into their stuff. I like Gossip Girl, I have my Barbie dolls. Some are white, some are Black, some are like, I have all these different, like, interests, or and the types of books I read, or I like reading books with people of different ethnicities, like from China or India or white or Black, and all these different things that I have many different, like, interests about. um and yeah, so it makes it, in that sense, it's not, my interests are not narrow in the sense of, like, oh, I only listen to this. No, I've been exposed to so many different things, and I guess, because and I guess we're different because our parents were not from here, so they're bringing their experience from where they're from in Africa to here, and then we're also, like, mixing that in, and so, and then and for us, like, all my siblings and I, we all live in, like, in different areas and have different types of friends, and so when we come together, that also is reflected in our discussions and conversations, about different things. And so and not everyone can, I don't know if everyone can kind of follow that or understand that or, like, see that, or and but it makes me very, like, it's made me more aware, I guess, too, because sometimes people, people say kind of, some people say, like, very narrow-minded things about different types of people, and I'm always kind of like, do you even have you even read about them? Like people say narrow-minded things, like you don't even know about them, and you're just saying whatever. And like even people I know that just say whatever about certain cultures, and I hold my tongue because like I'm like in my head I'm like, you don't even know, like you don't know anything about these people, and you're just like saying all these insulting things about them, for example. Whereas for me, I'm kind of, I guess because I have, there's so many, I'm so open to different things. Like I'm not, I don't know, I'm not that fast to be like, oh, these types of people like are horrible, leave them alone, I hate them, like I don't know, I just I would say the identity thing, having to grapple with what is my identity and where do I fit, and having people like question it and ask me why do I sound, things like that has kind of pushed me to be very, I'm just like open to a lot of different types of people and different things. And I feel like even if your identity is easier to define, I think you should still try to be open to other things. But I will say that the difference, to add one point before we move on, with Lupita is that like for her thing, it's I don't think she grapples with identity the way that we grapple with it. I think it's very, like her thing, because she's like, she knows where she's coming from. She's from Kenya, and so coming to America, like she doesn't have to deal with America the way that like we've dealt with it, right? Because she can go home, right? Like her home is Kenya. So even if America doesn't work out, that's fine. Like you just go to Kenya, it's okay. But for us, even if we can move somewhere else, we're still American. This is still our home. It's still our place. So if it's not working out here, it's like, where do we? This is our place though. We're from here, so we can't, sort of thing. And because we grew up here, we have a different relationship with racism, obviously, or discrimination, or like how people are. Like, for Lupita, she came here when she was like what, 20 or something. So it's like it would make sense that some of the issues that people go through in America, she would not get. And she admits that too, where she's like, even when she's like 12 years a slave, she really knows about, intellectually, she really knows it. And she's like, but it doesn't affect her in the same way. And that's where like, I guess our differences are, where it's like, you can go back home to Kenya and like, that's, but for us, it's like, we grew up here. And so it kind of shaped our whole thing with identity. And I think that's also why we should be careful too. Like if people don't fully understand the American experience, it's because if you didn't grow up here, sometimes it's hard for people to do that kind of thing. And so I think that's we should try to be more open to different like perspectives, because not everyone has the same ones. And yeah, I think that's what I'll say for now. It's kind of hard to, even discussing it now, it's hard to fully, what are we? I've kind of, but I just like what I like. I go for what I want. I make the friends that I want to make. And that's kind of how that works, to asking like, what really is your identity? Who really are you? If you had to pick one place, where would you pick? I don't know. I just want to go wherever my heart lands, which I think is similar to what Lupita said, where the world is yours. Like the world is like, it's okay for us to claim what we want to claim. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm supposed to act this way, so I should. It's like, no, just be yourself. I think it's okay to be yourself and just be open, and we don't have to. And I think to add one more point before I let Dagny to go in. Yeah, I think there's a lot of shifts in my life where not, like not knowing how to act like sometimes I would be like acting like my peers, my Hispanic peers. And then if I'm around white people, I act like white people, and then I act like black. And I don't even know what that means. What does it mean to act black, act white? What does that even mean, right? But it's like, yeah, you start acting to people around you, talking to people around you, saying all of those things, and while you're kind of figuring out who you are, kind of thing. And your parents are not from here, so it's like all those different shifts and stuff. And yeah, and I think it's been a little, I guess, it can be harder to be more self-aware, but I think when you get older as an adult, you have more agency. Like you can make what you want. You don't have to like, you just be who you are and what you are, and like you don't have to be so, because I think I went through a time where I was kind of trying to be more like other people around me. Not like in a really, I mean, I was always my own person, but like being a bit more like them, or being like, oh, well, people do this, so I'll try this, or people do this, and then finding that I wasn't really like the happiest, because I realized actually maybe I don't really want to do that. I tried it, but I'm like, I think I'm just going to go do my own thing, and that seems, even though that can be harder sometimes, but I think that makes you a bit happier when you just follow what your different interests are. But yeah, I don't know what. Anyway, Dagny, go on, please. I don't know if I'm going to keep on going on this.
No, you're
This
good.
identity thing is so hard to discuss.
Right?
Like,
no, it's not hard. It's just I feel like there are multiple branches or layers to it, which are very much determined by one's own experience. I think that's why the focus should not be, there should be this one box definition for identity, because that may not resonate with everyone. And there were two things that came up for me while you were speaking. And one of them was a paraphrase quote. It's not a direct quote, but it's a paraphrase that says, which apparently is paraphrasing the ideas of James Baldwin, but it's not really a quote from him. But I think it's probably just paraphrasing ideas, interpretations of him and other authors and thought people. Yes. And it goes, to be African American is to be African without any memory, and American without any privilege. And so when you think, just let that marinate for a moment. To be African American is to be African without any memory, and American without any privilege. Now, when you throw in the concept of identity in that experience, we can now even more understand why it would be a conversation that can go in so many different directions. Because it's almost like you're trying to define identity in sometimes hostile territory, completely foreign territory, or confusing territory. Then you have another layer. I think for us, part of this concept of identity comes with this desire to belong. When you are kind of born into and kind of basically spend the majority of your formative years and adolescent years and all these other years in a space where you just never feel like you actually fit, or you're always on the outside looking in. Not necessarily that things are so dire or terrible, or you're dodging dodgeballs all the time. Not that, but just like there's just this slight uneasiness that has just always been there. It's a different thing if your formative years, you were always solid and then you moved somewhere voluntarily. So you fitting in really was never part of the mission, so you don't need to. But when actually that uneasiness or feeling like, but I don't really fit with what's being reflected back to me from the beginning, this is where possibly the brain can go into these, like trying to find, where do I find that belonging? And I know for me, I think that's where gradually, like, creative outlets provided that for me. Also understanding the layers of privilege as well, because we can't put African American or Black American in one monolithic group. There are layers of Black Americans who don't have an issue. They're living just fine in America. Like they're not protesting about anything. They're good. And that doesn't mean they're pretending. It means they're good due to their families, their setup, where they're living, economics, whatever. Then when it comes to us first generation diasporans, as in our parents are immigrants, and then we are Black people born and raised in America, that's also a different privilege. Because like Damali noted, where we end up, sometimes we carry ourselves differently, we speak differently, our viewpoint of the world might be a bit more of a global view, because at home, we're not only talking about what's on CNN, we're also talking about what's going on in other parts of the world, because there's family over there, or there's other interests for us as well. And that causes a difference, as you noted, where, like, I don't want to say there's tension, but there is sometimes separation between, we're talking about the Black experience because we're Black. It will be interesting to know, like, does the same thing happen when you take note of, like, some Africans don't really want to mix with African Americans, or they choose to, they won't live in an African American neighborhood. And then some African Americans don't really want or have yet to really interact with Africans and have their own assumptions and stuff like that. So there's a separation that occurs, and the void of information and exposure, assumptions continue to fill that gap. I'm not sure if that also happens with, like, Indian Americans and Indians, or Chinese Americans and Chinese, or Mexican Americans and Mexicans. I'm not sure if they also have this disconnect that occurs, because I know at least for the Black experience, there's so much propaganda to push that. There's so much media to push that. There's so much debates to push that we're so different. We can't trust each other. We can't do anything to each other. I'm not sure if I have seen that between Mexican Americans and Mexicans. Oh, y'all don't even speak the same Spanish. Like, so you definitely can't work together. I'm not sure if that same push to keep them separate also happens with that, with how Black people all over the world, not only Africans and African Americans, but even Black Londoners, Black Caribbean, all of that, right? So with that though, I feel like when we talk about that belonging sort of deal, I feel like for me anyway, the questioning went from, the belonging and looking for that in our environment. And then the belonging of like, okay, can I create that for myself? Or could I seek that not just like in the classroom, but also like in books or in movies or in music and things like that? And I don't know if that's why, as maybe that's a good thing about the internet in some shape or form, where you get to see like, oh, I am not the only person having this type of experience. And oh, it's not weird that you have a variety of interests, even if they don't look exactly like you. Because I feel that's also some kind of propaganda in itself, of claiming like you should only be into stuff that looks like your skin tone or sounds like your accent, and everything else should just be disgusting to you. That doesn't make sense. Like I don't get who claimed those were the rules in general. So when you have like the nerdy stuff that we're into, and then thanks to the internet, take note that like, oh, it's not a white thing to be a nerd, or it's not, which I guess is also an American thing of like anything you're into, oh, that's a white thing. If you like classical music, or if you like anime, or if you like rock music, like all these different things, like, oh my gosh, that's only one demographic that can have that, and that's it. I think that further causes maybe confusion for people growing up in that kind of environment as well, because then it's like, oh, if I'm not allowed to experience these things, where is the restriction even coming from? Like, why is that kind of response happening for somebody who's very innocently just exploring the world that's around them and kind of cultivating their own taste, if you will? And so what I would say then, as we get further into this discussion and gradually wrap up, the point of this episode is, we always love having like, a solution, like what's the answer to the formula and that sort of thing. While this one is more of kind of demonstrating that we should be more gentle and accepting of the fact that there are so many mixed variety experiences that people are carrying and having, and so many different questions that maybe you have never even crossed your mind. And they're not good or bad, or one is not better than the other. And sometimes maybe for some, it can be seen it's a privilege to just have an identity that you don't have to question, because it seems to be accepted everywhere. No question comes up. No, like, but are you really from there? Because you don't sound like it, or you don't look like it, or you don't act like it. While then, for those who come from a variety where they never look like, act like, or sound like anything that makes sense to anybody, understanding or accepting that they don't understand and accept that they actually don't need to fit one box. And so pushing them to choose one over the other, or pushing them to completely remove or delete what they used to be and take on a certain costume or mask, is not fair or kind to them. And there's possibly a lot you can learn from them, because they happen to be so possibly, hopefully, more open-minded, because they've been so exposed or have had to balance so many different worlds that are just part of their so-called identity. While then also, I think on the flip side, for those who their identity is kind of solid, like it's never questioned, there's also so much you can learn from them, because by default, they just have more information because it was around them, which is something that if you have the variety, that wasn't there. So for those of us who like, you're the third culture, as in you are brought up in a foreign land from your family altogether, there's so much we end up just never picking up or experiencing because it just wasn't in our environment. But there are things that others would take for granted because it's just there. Like they don't have to pay for it. They don't have to subscribe to it. It's just there. So I think that doesn't mean we're deprived. I don't think that means like, so we're a fake version of what we are inheriting or what we are attached to or related to. I think it's just different. I still say we're kind of like a hybrid or a mutant in some way.
X-Men mutants.
There you go. There you go. So my suggestion, if you listening are someone like us who, not sure, whatever label or category you like to use, if you prefer to call yourself mixed, prefer yourself a descendant of immigrants or a third culture, something, whichever label resonates with you. Because again, I'm not too big on clinging on one label over the other. Because again, definitions always change depending on who's speaking. I would like to suggest that if you are in that place of wanting to find belonging and feel empty because you're constantly trying to mirror what's around you, that's okay. That is normal, yes. And hopefully, at least you can see from us, eventually you may find that belonging is actually something within you. Your environment doesn't have to reflect that or mirror anything to you. You actually have a special gift where you can carry belonging with you everywhere you go. And then just really enjoy the environment that you're in, absorb what resonates with you, adapt, remix it. Like you are the ultimate platinum remix for identity. And I think that's a gift. I think that's something that gives you a unique perspective that others don't have. And so eventually you will grow to learn to not take it too personally when people want to mock you or put you in a box or question you for what your interests are, what you're trying to do, or who you are. That's the biggest thing, because maybe sometimes they can see like, well, if you're multiple things, that means you're nothing. So you probably have some insecurity about who you are. And it's like, nah, that's not where it's at. Instead, embrace all that you are and embrace all that you can combine with what you already are. It does take time, but I feel, for me anyway, the mindset of like my belonging is actually what I create, what I carry within me and hold within me. And so then when I'm learning other cultures or when I am surrounded by different cultures, I get to really just focus on their beauty, like accept their beauty and learn it, not try to mimic it, not try to blend into it, and not trying to find a place to fit in, because actually I'm not supposed to, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The hope is that all these different people and cultures that are around you can also accept you for being different too, and see the beauty in that as well. And then my suggestion for those who don't have to have some major identity conference within your head, or have to question or define your identity through different phases of your life, because it was already there for you, so you can think about other things. I would say, one, that's a gift as well. And I hope you take advantage of that. Like really listen to your grandma's recipes, really listen to your father's stories. Like you carry something that you can carry and pass on that not all families have. Not only because of mixture, but also due to migration and unfortunately places being destabled, if that's the right way to put it, and things like that. But so that is something you should definitely like see as something valuable and a gift as well. You don't necessarily have to think like, well, if you're only one thing, that means like it's not as special. I think again, we have to take note that like there's no competition between what's more special or interesting and what is not. It should be more of actually accepting how beautiful everything is, or how all of us are. So that's what I would, to wrap that up and take note of, like the solution of it is more of like shifting that mindset and being more accepting and open to learning on both sides.
Yeah. I like what you said about carrying belonging with you. I think that has been a big shift from, I guess, for many people, and for me, like from childhood is finding belonging, and then adulthood is more about creating your own belonging and carrying belonging with you. Like it's more of an internal thing. I think for childhood, which I guess for most people, which makes sense, because I think we don't I guess we try to, but we don't. I think we should teach it more where a lot of what can fix whatever issue you're going through is internally. I think we do a lot of and I suspect it's because external stuff you can see it, you can touch it, it's in front of you, so it's easier to use that to anchor yourself to. But it's more internal is harder because inside you can't see it. You have to like really feel it and think about it and mull over it, kind of thing. And so yeah, I think that's what's kind of the biggest thing to do is a biggest shift is to carry belonging with you. You don't have to like be, you don't have to mirror what you just, which I mean, mirroring also can help you figure out what you don't want to be like and then who you truly want to be. So I agree with that. And also to add to what you said about like, yeah, I don't know if there's like a solution kind of thing. It's just about like create and find your own identity and you can carry it with you and it's whatever you make it, and it doesn't matter if people say like, oh, you sound weird or you're not white enough, you're not black enough, you're not this enough, like why don't you have black friends, why don't you, well, if you're black kind of thing. And also to add, yeah, to creative outlets are also useful because it enables you to go into something like fully and you're using like a different part of your brain, or if I think like for me, like for like learning Chinese, or there's a time where I was like singing opera, or like a time when I was like like on stage, or even doing sports or doing different types of things that are, I think those are all like really good outlets for like expressing yourself. And also especially if you're, which I guess maybe that's Lupita's thing too, like, or many actresses, when you act you can be whoever you want and no one's like, no, don't do, like, no, when you're an actress or actor you can be that. And I think in real life, like, it's okay to be that not that you're pretending to be something else, but you can be who you want to be, which like whatever feels most authentic to you and makes you feel the most yourself is where it's at, regardless of like what people think or say or what you think you're supposed to like. And it definitely is a like it's a learning curve because things will shift and make you think different. 'Cause I even remember, like, do you guys remember the BLM protests and everything and George Floyd and all of that? And there was a time where I did have that slight feeling of like, wait, should I not watch white people stuff anymore? Like, does that make me not black? Like, should I not? I'm like, there are some shows that are good and they're all white people and there isn't a single black person. And I'm like, should I not be watching this? And I remember even like but taking like some taking out like a poster of mine, or like not looking. I'm just like, wait, there's not enough black people in this kind of thing. Should I be, all those things, which is strange because like when I was younger, I would just watch. Like, I didn't care. Okay, they're all white. Okay, I just like the show or the book. I don't really, I mean, obviously as I get older, I like want to look into more things, but like I feel like we don't have to if you enjoy something and it is authentic to you and it means something to you, you don't have to feel like, oh, I can't, this is not black enough, this is not Chinese enough, this is not white enough, and I'm supposed to be doing this or doing whatever kind of thing. So yeah, I would agree that I think the best thing I could say is just like identity is what you make it, because there's too many ideas and narratives about it that I think obviously there isn't just one way to be. There's not just one way to identify. There's not just one, because if there was, then why is it so hard for us to like explain it and discuss it and things like that? And for people that don't grapple with that, I agree with Dagny where you just, try to be more open. It's nice not to grapple with it, to know exactly who you are without having to question it, kind of thing. But I do think even questioning it is open. Like like, well, to add one more thing before, so this is going to like 5 hours, but I isn't it what do they say, like people that are, if you're questioning stuff, that's smart. Like it's not dumb. I think we think like we're supposed to know everything, and if you question it, you're not smart. And it's like, no, actually, the questioning stuff is smart. Questioning opens your mind. If you're so sure of yourself and like, oh, this is the way it is and that's it, I have to be like this, that's it, I think that can sometimes pigeonhole you, kind of thing, and cause it's okay to think about who am I, and am I really, is this what I'm really interested in, is this really the culture I want to you know get into, is this really the accent, like, things like that. And I think generally, normally on our own, I think people are fine. Just sometimes other people will question and be like, why do you look like that, why do you act like that? And it's like, because this is how I identify, kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's just an uphill thing we deal with. And yeah, I can't think of it's not really a solution. It's just claim it. I'll go with what Dagny said, where you can define your identity and you carry belonging with you. That's like the best thing you can do, I think. I think I'll just leave it at that, because we'll probably have, I don't know if we'll have more podcast episodes about this, because we can go everywhere with this topic. And also to add to, you should go, What is an Accent? Lupita Nyong'o and Trevor Noah, you should watch it, because I thought it was very interesting and I related with some of it.
Yes.
I think that's all. I can't think of anything else. I mean, I can't, but then we're going to go on for like 5 hours.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for the conversation and for you listening. Yes. If there's a topic that resonates with you, let us know. Are there any other questions you want us to answer? Any other directions you'd like to take it to?
Yes.
Comment and let us know, and you might find it in another episode. Thank you again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Yes. Continue to carry your belonging wherever you want it to go, and you are in charge of defining your own identity. Okay, have a good day.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.